Hello. Okay. It's live. It might be live. It's acting. Yeah, it's flashing in the corner. Okay. Sorry about that. The Thursday boot models, I wrote a list. They had introduced some newer ones, over time, and I haven't been able to get all of them yet. And I wasn't going to get all of them anyway. I'll get into that. I just put out two videos yesterday, posted about the cowboy boots and the logger boots. Um, so I'm hoping still someday to do more of a wear review, like, but I don't know how these guys count, how they get all the out. Oh, I've logged 72 hours in these boots. Okay, I don't know how you know that exactly, kind of thing. Or I've logged 863 hours. Sure, I take your word for it. I don't know how many hours I've logged in these. These are the President boots. I've reviewed two colors of these already. But I'm not gonna, show every single one in extreme detail again yet or here, because this is meant to be, kind of an easy breezy guide for people who, just want a little bit more information than you get on the website, I guess. Without having to watch extended videos, although the other pair, the Diplomat, I think this is my most watched video out of all of them ever. So chances are you've already seen that video if you're watching this. I don't know. So yeah, like I said, it's been, well, trial and error with like almost any shoe company, I guess, except we're buying online, so it's a little harder to try them on. With Thursday, you can get them through Amazon or you can get them direct, and their exchange policy has been pretty easy. But I did have to try like three different models of this to get to what I believe the correct size is, my shoe size. So if you find that they run big or run small for you, I don't want to just make a blanket statement. These run normal, these run small, but for the most part, yes, these run normal, these run small, these run very small, in fact. So I have a couple $100 worth here that I can't wear or won't wear because they don't fit. So that's annoying, and that's what we try to avoid. And those of you who shopped their warehouse sale last month, you might be already figuring this out because you might have bought some that now you can't return. Um, yeah, because if you really have to buy two or three sizes, it's a little tricky. But they offer typically a couple different outsoles. This is kind of your standard imitation of a day night sole that is a street day wear kind of sole, whereas then they also have like a mini lug sole that has a bit more traction that can be used for more, hiking purposes, although I'm sure most people still wear these just to look rugged on the street. And this is the Captain, of course, which we'll talk about in more detail when we start to get more specific. This version has the Kevlar laces, whereas this one has the dressy laces. So, the differences between the President boot and the Captain boot here, I've showed this in the other videos, but here you have no cap toe feature, and different ones will have different things. This particular one has two speed hooks. I don't know if there's versions with all eyelets, but I think so. This boot, on the other hand, this is the rugged leather, not the Chrome Excel leather. So it's less shiny and a little more resistant to dirt and stains or whatever, but it comes looking already beat up. And I think they had versions that had eyelets here, but I'm not positive. But I know they have versions that have more similar to this leather. in matte black and that kind of thing. So the new iteration, well, just to finish with the President still a bit, because again, I did a video where I compared the President to the Hero, where again, the Hero has no cap toe, but does have, some of them have the mini lug, but the honey colored and with the waxed flesh instead of a tanned dyed leather. Kind of awkward, but overall basically the same boot, but this one runs bigger than this one, so this one I had to again experiment with sizing, because I was surprised that the Hero and the President, looking almost like the exact same boot, don't fit like the same boot. And this one again has this dumb little pull tab that I keep meaning to take some scissors and remove that, but haven't gotten around to it yet. But so, and here we see eyelets, no speed hooks. Here we see a less attractive color of the eyelets, maybe, instead of, you know, blending in. We just got this kind of shiny nickel color. Contrast stitching. Here we've got this waxed flesh that we'll be getting into a little bit more. Again, I said this yesterday about the logger boots. I'm not positive if this is meant to save time or save money as opposed to dyeing the leather. But a lot of people like it as a new trendy kind of fad or whatever, because this wears off and you get a more suede look to the thing. The tops have kind of this deal going on, whereas the President is a lined boot with the glove leather. And I don't know if they stopped doing that with all of them or not. The Captain also had the lining with the glove leather. So you can see that. They don't have gusseted tongues. None of them have gusseted tongues. They'll have freestanding tongues, which is easier to show without the laces. Okay. So if you don't know. And of course, the Diplomat, of course, having a completely different outsole, a wedge, and a mock toe, which is this contrast decorative kind of stitch meant to, you know, typically in mock toes you're supposed to, I don't get the illusion of getting more toe room, but these are so pointy and narrow. As I pointed out in the other video, they're almost cowboy boots. Speaking of cowboy boots, now I can really show you, if I can get the thing to cooperate, you know, how narrow that really is. So that is almost a cowboy boot that I couldn't show in the Diplomat video. So if anybody wants to go back and watch the Diplomat, but here we did have the nickel hardware already, so that's not a totally new thing. In certain models, they had changed aspects of them over the years, so I don't know when I was getting old ones from Amazon or newer ones and when they made the different changes and upgrades and all that. So you've got the 360 Goodyear welt here, and this should be a leather welt. Whereas on the Captain boot, see, there was no welty thing. The thing was just going there. Whereas on the Hero boot, now you have a plastic welt that, now people will complain about a plastic welt, but on a boot that's only $200, I mean, you'll pay not quite $100 more for a thorough good boot, and it'll still have a plastic welt, right? So not the end of the world, but not necessarily top quality construction, because the plastic welts can fail a lot easier, I guess, than the leather ones. But here again, we have none of that going on. We just have the stitching down into it. So I don't know if they've changed the President boots since then, like they've changed the Captain boot from the older iteration, like I'm showing here, to a newer version that now has this. And I didn't do a separate video for this color yet, but again, we have the waxed flesh deal, which is kind of part of the reason why I'm making this video, even though it's still just the Captain boot. Just, you know, no, the color of the outsole has changed for this model, and the leather is now this waxed instead of the rough and rugged and resilient, or the, I don't know, regular, like I said, Chrome XL that I think are the two that they offered before. And so we still have the Kevlar laces. We still have the 2 speed hooks. We don't have the nickel so bright here, but we do have this pair. One of the fronts of them was kind of funky. I think that was why they were considered defects and not positive. You can kind of, if I can get them to line up, you can maybe see one of them is kind of cockeyed. So this one's a little bit straight and this one's a little bit goofy in the front there. They're both a little bit goofy, but this one's worse, I think. And I don't know if this is considered a blemish or not, this kind of indentation, but stuff like that tends to crease and wrinkle when you wear them anyway, so I wouldn't think too much about that. But I didn't bother to do an unboxing of this. Again, because I already did a Captain boot video and I've already compared the Captain boots to like 6 other boots in my videos. So if you don't know what Captain boots are by now, you're like the last person in the world who's heard of them, apparently. So, I mean, I saw a video where a guy ordered 5 pairs and I was sitting there going, well, I hope he knew what size to get first. But, you know, because otherwise you're going to be like these. When in my other video, I said these fit perfect right out of the box, and what I didn't realize was that perfect in boots is not the same thing as sneakers. So really, technically, these are a little too small. So these fit much better for the half a size bigger. So there's not really that much difference that you can see, but in the length. But they are a little wider, and that helps a lot because Thursday boots tend to seem to run really narrow, so you can really see the width more than you can the length. I don't know that the length is that much difference, but I did find these toes to be a little bit pointy and have a little bit extra out in the front. And I think with the new last, they've shortened that a little bit and widened them overall. I think that was the big difference. And so I had said on other people's videos that I wasn't going to check out the new last because I already had a pair of the boots, and overall I preferred the President model anyway for the look of the less fake cap toe and ruggedy whatever. But these were on sale price, so I figured they were worth it for now, for just to have a spare pair. And because like I said, I already have a spare pair of the President in the other color. And then the other ones that I did that are similar but not the exact same thing that I talked about yesterday is the logger boots. But here we see again, not the same plastic welt, at least the stitching. But here we got a boot that also runs too small, same as the Hero boot. Basically, except for the cap toe and a couple other minor features, basically the same boot again, kind of, but a slightly different toe shape maybe, and not quite the sizing that I had hoped, and a little bit taller. The heel stack is not as tall as you would think it's going to be for a logger boot. Shoot, this is really awkward. So you can see the heel stack is really almost the same as the normal mini lug heel stack, but the shaft height is pretty much maybe a little over an inch of difference. My camera shows everything in reverse. When I used to pre-record the videos, it was a lot easier for me to point to the specific thing and have my finger go to the right spot and not be moving it to the wrong side of the screen and all that. But here now we have this kind of stacking. I don't know if that's leather or some other compound. It might be leather. Stacked leather in between the rubber and the other rubber up here and down here. But then, like I said, they had put this on here instead of a more rugged commando sole. This is still a more rugged outsole, obviously, than the mini lugs. slightly much, but not quite as much heavy duty lug traction as you would get from a more traditional logger boot, which again, I pointed that out yesterday. And so here again, we have the Kevlar laces, whereas here, for some reason in the logger boot, we have the dress boot laces, and again with the nickel hardware, which I kind of said already. So, okay, I'm showing the boots that I have here, and then I'll read off the list in a minute. So this is the the porn segment of the video, and then we'll get to the boring words, because I don't have those other boots. And then the cowboy boot, again, I just did a video about this yesterday. So obviously, I don't know when they introduced the Western boots exactly, but they seem to have introduced 3 basic models. So you have a round toe model called the Maverick, which is this. And then there's a square toe model called the, what's it called? Right. Why can't I find it? Well, there's a harness version, which is going to be a shorter height shaft, but not a roper. But they also have a roper boot called a something Frontier, and then there's an engineer boot called a Rogue, and then the square toe is called the Desperado, which otherwise looks, I think, basically the same as this, same leather, same colors, but with a square flat instead of a round toe. And so obviously, if I was reviewing this and reviewing the Desperado, I'm sure it'd be pretty much the same boot. Just like I said, it's one slight difference. So yeah, I literally just talked about this boot yesterday, so you can look that up. So here are the boots that the Diplomat. Again, coming back to this is the rugged and resilient. So this is a slightly different leather than maybe some of the other leather choices they had. This was the Adobe something. So more of a reddish kind of. And I tried to wear these for about 3 weeks and killed my feet because they were just way too narrow, way too small. And I wasn't sure if they had discontinued any of these or not. Like I said, I think they've morphed some of the colors, and I think they're offering a lot more of this waxed flesh deal. But other than that, I think all of these models are still available. So I looked on the website. So then there was also a wingtip model. I'm just going to assume that since that's a dressy boot, that's going to run small. They had I don't know, some colors at the sale price, but I didn't get a chance to get those. Maverick, that's this. Logger, okay. Vanguard, I think, is an upgrade of either the Hero boot or the Captain boot. It's somewhere in the middle of those, I think. Not quite the same as the President boot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the President boot is in between the Hero and the Captain. I'm not sure. So I don't know which outsoles might be offered in the Vanguard, but the Vanguard will have USA tanned leather instead of Mexico tanned leather, and USA labor instead of Mexico labor. But overall, from what I've seen in videos, the components inside are exactly the same as the Captain, the President, the Hero, the Logger. So you're still going to have a plastic heel counter and foam footbed, and I don't know if it'll have a plastic welt or not, if the old ones had welts and if the new ones don't, or vice versa, and all that. The price range, we'll talk about that in a minute. The new last, again, the Captain, they changed the last. The Vanguard, I assume they didn't change the last. I want to talk about the President in a minute. But let me finish this review of all the other. So there's one called the Legend, and one called the. There was 3 that were Chelsea boots: the Duke, the Legend and somebody else. I'm never ever probably buying Chelsea boots, so you'll have to get your review of those somewhere else. Then there was the Cavalier, that was the other one. Then there's one called the Cadet, which I think is the same as the President, but with a lower height on the upper here. And then there's a Chukka boot called the Scout, which, again, a Chukka boot, you're going to have an even lower height here and a lot less lacing in the system. You'll only have 2 or 3 laces in a Chukka boot lacing system. They're meant to be super simple, basic boots. So I was tempted to get a pair of those last year, and then I didn't because I already have some from another company, and I already have some really cheap ones that I haven't even worn yet. So let's see. I already said the Roper's called the Frontier. Then there's the Rogue, which is the Engineer. And then there's two that I consider hiking boots. One called the Explorer and one called the Commander, which has a lower shaft. I don't remember now about either of those. I would probably compare that to the Logger boot for the Commander, maybe. But it might have been a side zip one. They had 3 that were side zips, I think. The Major, which was the cap toe version, like the Captain, but with a side zip. And the Stomper, which had a side zip. And I cannot endorse any side zip boots. Maybe for city use, they're fine. I've tried to go hiking with many, many, many pairs of kind of inexpensive combat boots, and I've had the zippers fail on almost every single one when I'm going up some steep incline, and they just keep coming down, and I have to keep stopping and zipping. Sometimes I don't even notice that it's unzipped, so I'm lucky I didn't, sprain my ankle or whatever. So yeah, not a huge fan. Otherwise, most of them, like I said, are deviations of these existing models anyway, just with a zipper. So it shouldn't be too hard for you to figure that out. So yeah, what I was saying before, I don't know how much corners they've been cutting, like if this wax is a cutting corners thing to bring down costs. Again, the plastic welt, when they introduced a welt, obviously that's a cheap option, but not, necessarily the worst option. Then they had somebody else had been doing video. I've seen 2 or 3 videos where they were talking about other brands trying to imitate the Captain boots, but at a lower price point and trying to shave off some of their business. My advice to, if Thursday was listening, was do the opposite. Don't try to compete with those bargain basement budget guys. Elevate your quality, even if it means you have to raise your price. And I think you'd find people more willing to pay that, but they're going to do what they're going to do. Because there's better companies than this that people are always arguing with me why am I even bothering with Thursday boots when I can get Grant Stone ones. Well, I have got Grant Stone ones, but they do cost twice as much, so you have to be willing to pay for Grant Stone ones. But if this cost a little bit more and this is not even the worst one out of all of them, like I said, the President boot. But what I was going to talk about, but if this cost a little bit more and it had a leather welt, would you, say that was worth it? Maybe. Yeah, probably, and if it had more customizable options or something, we have the internet now, like, let me pick what color outsole I want or whatever, that kind of thing. I think, people would pay a little more premium for that. This was kind of funny because these have worn down a little bit. And I have other boots where I get pebbles stuck in the nail holes. And so I usually have to pry them out with a little awl or something. So one of these 2 pairs, I don't have the other one in here. I just have this one. But I had thought I had pebbles in here, and I was able to pry the nails out pretty quickly. with an awl. And for how long I've had these and how much I've worn these, I shouldn't really be able to pry the nails out. I'm not sure if that one's missing in the middle or not. It might be in there. But I took, I'm going the wrong way with my finger. So like I said, this camera is. So what I did was I took a regular carpenter nail and put it on top and hammered it back in, and hopefully the nails will stay in the heel until I. But these shouldn't need a resole anytime soon, but they still get worn down there. Whereas the logger boot, it's almost completely flat and the heel is kind of oddly misshapen or something. I don't know if that's why these were on special or not, or if it was one of many reasons, or if that's just how the heels look when they come from Vibram instead of Thursday or something. I really don't know, but it does not look exactly the same, and the other one's still in the box, so similar deal. But yeah, you can see where they had Thursday on the bottom of these instead of Vibram, and also on the bottom of these. And the newer ones, yeah, also their version of a mini lug. So I don't know how often they use Vibrams, if that was a new edition or an old edition or what, or prototypes, who knows. But, you know, kind of a tall tongue on this one, which is nice because then your laces aren't catching into your leg, but also not gusseted like a standard logger boot to keep out the dust and debris and the rodents and the bugs and all that. And for those of you who don't know, yeah, these cap toes are cosmetic only, I guess. They're not 2 layers of full leather like I, would originally hope. Although with more expensive boots, I had bought them thinking that I had real cap toes and probably don't. And the stitching is okay, but not heavy duty stitching like you might get on a more substantial work boot. Again, I think most of the complaints I'm getting from or seeing or getting from guys is guys who expect to get this boot for $200 and be able to use it like a work boot, because you can get a pair of Wolverines for less than this price, right? And maybe beat them up a lot more. But it's not really what we're doing with these. So, they're meant to be more of a semi-dress boot. Like, again, maybe only the president and some of the others of the hero if they have nicer ones, and maybe like I said, obviously the wingtips you would assume, a more true dressy boot. The rest of these are a little more technically casual boots, but again, for $200, like, yeah, what did you expect? Okay, so this video went on about twice as long as I thought it would, but I think I covered most of everything that we needed to get through. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and field them as best I can and wrap this up so it doesn't go on and on and on and on, since I don't have any of these other models here and I can't remember what else I need to talk about.